All right, I think we can get started now. So thank you all for joining. Good evening. My name is Manira Santhir. I'm the planning manager with the City of San Mateo. And we are here tonight to share with you information about Senate Bill 9. Tonight's our community workshop on this item, which does have an effect on the city, on what we can do in our single family neighborhoods. And we wanted to share what Senate Bill 9 means for the city of San Mateo. Joining me tonight are associate planners, Laura Richstone and Linda Lee. They're the project managers for this project and your first point of contact if you have questions moving forward. This particular bill went into effect on January 1st of this year, so it is currently in effect. And if a homeowner would like to do something under a Senate Bill 9, that avenue is certainly available to you. Our reason for congregating tonight is to hear from you on areas where Senate Bill 9 provides local jurisdictions some discretion on the path forward. Also joining us tonight from the city side is Mary Way. She's our administrative assistant and will be supporting us in the Zoom format and helping guide this meeting. So with that, we have a presentation for you and hopefully plenty of time at the end for questions and comments. I'll turn it over to Laura Richstone to start her presentation.
Hi, thank you, Manira. So before we kick off the meeting, I just wanted to put a quick plug that the meeting will be recorded tonight, just so you all know, and that if you would like to turn on or off captions, you have that ability. There is a CC button in like the lower right-hand corner of the menu bar. And if you would like to turn that on or off, you can do so. So with those housekeeping items, let's dive right in. So starting with a quick agenda, we'll start tonight with a brief overview of SB 9, including what can be built and minimum standards as outlined by the state. I'll go over previous and planned future outreach for this item. And we'll move into community feedback and 2 quick polls so we can gather your thoughts and ideas about our direction forward as we navigate this process. And then wrapping up, I'll outline next steps in the process, and then we'll open up the floor for Q&A for the remainder of our time together. And diving right in. As Manira said, SB 9 went into effect this year. It was signed into law September 16th, 2021 by Gavin Newsom, and it's intended to expand housing production within the state. The bill allows property owners in single-family residential zones to build at least 2 main units on their existing lot and or to subdivide an existing lot into 2 parcels. The law requires local agencies like the city to ministerially approve SB 9 projects without discretionary review if they meet certain qualifying criteria. And because SB 9 is a state law, it supersedes city regulations regarding development standards and subdivision standards in some instances. And the city is only allowed to impose objective design, zoning, and subdivision standards as long as our standards don't conflict with the state law. And when there is a conflict, the state law prevails. So per SB 9, projects can only be denied, can only be denied if the building official makes written findings that a project would have adverse impacts on codified public health or safety standards or the environment, and further finds that the impacts cannot be feasibly mitigated. Cities that deny SB 9 projects based on this provision may be subject to legal challenges, if they can't clearly identify the specific impact and demonstrate that mitigation is not feasible. To be eligible for SB 9 projects, a property, there's some locational requirements. So location-wise, the property has to be zoned single family, which is our R1 district, and it cannot be located in a city historic designated district or a designated historic property by the city, state, or listed on the National Register of Historic Properties, which is a federal list. The map to the right shows all three of our R1 zoning districts highlighted in yellow, where SB9 could apply. So they're sprinkled throughout the city, as you can see. And then in addition to locational requirements, SB9 projects have additional restrictions. They cannot result in the demolition of affordable or rent-controlled housing units. There is a 25% demolition limit on a structure's exterior walls, and the alteration of a unit that has been occupied by a tenant within the last 3 years is prohibited. So these provisions or standards, if you will, were included in the state law to prevent speculation by developers, to prevent tenants displacement, and to prevent the conversion of affordable housing, or more affordable housing, I should say, into market rate units. So SB9 outlines two paths forwards. There's two types of development. There's a 2-unit duplex development project, which you can see here, or an urban lot split project. So for projects that do not propose a lot split, up to 4 units per property may be built. This includes potentially 2 main units, an ADU, and a JADU. And as I said, SB9 as a state law supersedes local development standards and establishes its own standards in some instances. And the city is prohibited from requiring, for SB9, the city is prohibited from requiring a setback or for an existing structure or structure constructed in the same location and to the exact same dimensions as an existing structure. In all other instances, SB9 allows a minimum 4-foot rear and side yard setback. And then the city can apply our general front yard setback, whatever that may be in the R1 district. Other city objective standards, such as height and FAR limits, would still apply to SB9 projects, so long as our standards do not preclude the construction of an 800 square foot SB9 unit. And this is very, very similar to the state's ADU regulations as they stand now. SB9 also establishes its own parking standards separate from the city standards. So per SB9, the city may require a maximum of 1 off-street parking stall per primary unit, unless that property is located within a half-mile walking distance of a high-quality transit corridor, which in our case would be El Camino, or within a half-mile walking distance of a major transit stop, which would be the city's Caltrain stations, or within a half-mile of a car share hub location. As mentioned before, there's 2 types of SB9 projects. We talked about previously the non-urban lot split. So now we're going to segue into urban lot split projects. So under SB9, if a lot is split into 2, the city must allow at least 2 units on each lot. With the lot split, that would consist of 4 units total, 2 units and 2 units, where originally you had the 1 lot. Per SB9, the city may be more permissive and allow up to 4 units per lot in that lot split scenario, by potentially allowing additional ADUs or JADUs. And that would cumulatively allow 8 units, 4 units and 4 units, where before you just had the 1 lot. Under SB9, lot splits have to result in parcels that are roughly equal in size, with a maximum size split differential of 60-40. Each resulting parcel, as I said, has to be roughly equal, and each resulting parcel must be at least 1,200 square feet. All new development on these new parcels are required to maintain a 4-foot rear and side yard setback, in addition to the city's front yard setback requirements. Required parking for urban lot split development projects are the same as what's required for the 2-unit duplex projects, which is a maximum of 1 parking stall per primary unit, and no parking required if the parcel is within a half-mile walking distance of El Camino, a Caltrain station, or a car share hub. So per state law, certain actions are prohibited under SB 9, and they include, especially for the lot split projects, they include a prohibition of sequential lot splitting of a property using SB 9. So once you split the property, you're one and done. The same owner cannot split that property again. There is a prohibition of establishing short-term rentals like Airbnbs or VBROs within SB 9 units. And additionally, the city cannot require corrections of existing nonconformities as a condition of project approval for lot split projects. Nor can the city impose objective standards that would preclude the construction of a unit size of at least 800 square feet. In addition, SB 9 lot split projects are limited to residential uses only. And as an extra requirement, owners of an SB 9 lot split property have to sign an affidavit stating that they intend to occupy one of the housing units created from this project as their primary residence for at least 3 years after project approval. All of these prohibitions and extra requirements were included in the state law to prevent large-scale lot splits by developers or professional developers and speculation. So as touched upon, the Community Development Department is preparing to draft local SB 9 regulations in conformance with state law. On February 22nd, the city held a study session with the City Council where staff requested high-level policy guidance and feedback in 5 policy areas where the state still allows some flexibility. And these areas include demolition limits, public noticing, subdivision map extensions, maximum number of units, and unit sizes. Let's see. From that February 22nd City Council meeting, the council provided feedback on demolition limits. Their general feedback was to increase the initial 25% demolition limit outlined in state law to 50%. This would be more in line with current practices that the city has and could potentially allow greater feasibility for attaching units by giving property owners more flexibility and potentially preserving open space on site if they're able to attach a unit. In addition, the City Council recommended that an informational notice be provided to neighbors for SB 9 projects. They did not recommend that the life of the subdivision map be extended beyond what is currently allowed, which with all applicable extensions would allow up to 8 years for a subdivision map before expiration. Regarding policy areas 4 and 5, the maximum number of units on urban lot split properties and potential unit size and FAR limits, the City Council requested more information, and we're bringing it back to City Council next month, June 6th, to further discuss these items in a study session. So with that, we'll take a quick break and jump into a poll. Linda?
Thanks, Laura. So we have a quick poll just to learn who is in the room, and we'd appreciate if you can participate. This will help help inform our future outreach efforts on SB9. So I am going to start the first poll. It's for 2 questions. So I'll give this a minute for everyone to fill in. All right, 50%. Great, 90%. Okay, I'll just end it here. Oh wait, 100%. Perfect. Thanks everyone. So I'm going to end the poll and just a quick summary. So it looks like 80% of you all have not heard of SB9. This is your first time, so thanks for joining us. And tell us about yourself. It looks like we have over half identify as a resident, 40% identify as a property owner, and the rest renter, work here, or don't live here but would like to. Thanks for participating. So I will bring this back to Laura.
Thank you, Linda. And thank you everyone who participated. There we go. Before I jump into this slide regarding potential maximum unit number of units per lot, I first would like to highlight that SB9, there's a big distinction between projects that do not involve a lot split and projects that do for number of units allowed per lot. Non-urban lot split projects are allowed up to 4 units per lot by state law. This is outright allowed, and the city has no discretion in this area. However, SB9 projects that do propose an urban lot split are initially capped at 2 units per property by state law. However, SB9 allows local jurisdictions the discretion or ability to decide if they would like to allow up to 4 units per lot for an urban lot split project, if those local jurisdictions decide to do so. The state built some flexibility into the law in this area because they recognize that building potentially 4 units on smaller lots with the reduced parking and setback requirements outlined in SB9 may not necessarily be appropriate for every jurisdiction. So they gave local jurisdictions essentially flexibility to decide that locally. So with that out of the way, staff would like your initial feedback on what you believe is the appropriate maximum development potential for lot split projects. As I said, cities must allow 2 units per lot, but we have the ability to allow up to 4. So questions we would like you to think about as we move through this presentation are, should more than 2 units be permitted through an SB9 lot split, or should it be capped at 2 units per property? Let's see, there we go. If we potentially allow more than 2 units, should we cap it at 3 or 4? Or alternatively, we can approach this issue in a tiered structure where staff could potentially explore potentially allowing smaller parcels being limited to 2 units, but maybe larger parcels would be allowed 3 or 4 units. So we'll have another poll in a few minutes. So as you're percolating about this idea, to catch your feedback on this, and we're going to be sharing your feedback with council as they also provide feedback in this area. And we city staff will be taking this feedback, and it will provide us a launching point as we start drafting initial regulations, a draft ordinance in this area. The other area that staff is seeking feedback tonight in is potential FAR or unit size limits for SB9 units, and if this option should be explored at all. Under SB 9, cities must allow a unit size of at least 800 square feet for primary units and 800 square feet for ADU units. And no city standard can be imposed that precludes these unit sizes, excuse me. Each zoning district in the city contains FAR regulations, which are used to control the maximum size and square footage of development on a parcel. In R1 districts in particular, these FAR standards are based on the size of the parcel. So the bigger the parcel you have, essentially, the more square footage you're allowed to build. However, for the single family zoned areas, regardless of how big your parcel is, the city has a maximum FAR size limit of 6,000 square feet. Under SB 9, under a maximum development under a maximum development scenario potential for SB 9, it's possible for a unit to be built out to its maximum FAR. And then a property owner could potentially add an additional 800 square feet each for a second main unit and an ADU, essentially. So that would be maximum square footage plus 1,600 square feet. So tonight, staff is seeking initial community input on if unit size limits should be established for SB 9 units. And should unit size limits be limited to 800 square feet, which is the minimum size that local jurisdictions have to allow per state law, or should staff explore potentially allowing larger units? So if we potentially explore options of allowing larger units, what should that cap be? Should it be based on the underlying FAR, or should a mixed or tiered approach be explored, wherein potentially smaller size parcels would be limited to just 800 square feet, and potentially larger size parcels where they had FAR to play with per the underlying zoning district potentially would be allowed to build larger SB 9 units. But what does that actually really mean? I know this is very complicated. So the potential effects of limiting unit size on lots to 800 square feet, regardless of the size of the lot, include potentially creating more affordable units to a wider range of income earners or first-time home buyers, if only because those unit sizes are smaller and thus more affordable. Another potential impact could possibly be limiting the overall intensity of development in terms of square footage on a property, and preserving more open space on a site if one were to limit the size of a SB 9 unit to only 800 square feet, for example. However, on the flip side, potential effects of allowing units in excess of 800 square feet could include increasing the economic feasibility or return of a project for an owner. Larger units typically have more bedrooms, and that may afford itself to more families being able to move into an area. And in addition, larger units may result also in the reduction of usable open space on site. So there are pros and cons to each as you go about thinking about this. And as you go about thinking about this, sorry, very repetitive, and what is most appropriate for San Mateo, I just wanted to put a plug in that staff did do a survey of surrounding jurisdictions, including Foster City, Burlingame, San Carlos, San Francisco, to name a few, to see what they have been doing regulation-wise with SB 9. And staff found that a majority of these jurisdictions have essentially deferred to the minimum allowed by state law for number of units. So a majority of these jurisdictions have limited SB 9 lot split projects to only 2 units per property. And for unit size maximums, what a majority of these jurisdictions have done is they have allowed units to potentially be greater than 800 square feet as allowed by the underlying zoning district. So for example, if you build on a lot and the maximum FAR is 2,500 square feet, and you already have 1,500 square feet of development, that means you have 1,000 square feet to play with. And most of these jurisdictions with their regulations would allow an SB9 unit to be up to 1,000 square feet as allowed by their underlying FAR. So I'll turn it over to Linda to get your feedback in these areas.
Yep, thanks, Laura. So I know that was a lot of information to go through and think through, but thanks for summarizing kind of the pros and cons as we with you think through the SB9 standards. So I'm going to launch the second poll. It should pop up on your screen. There's 5 questions total, and you may have to scroll down the window just to see it all. But we'd appreciate if you can take a few minutes, read through the questions, share with us your feedback, your initial feedback on SB9 regulations. So I'll pause and let you all take the time to read through and answer. All right, we have 2 so far. So waiting on one more, but I'll give it a minute before I close it. All right, I think we're ready to close. We had 90% response rate. So I'm going to go ahead and share the results. So the first question asks, should the city allow more than 2 units on each lot for SB9 lot split projects? We have a roughly split a third. Some said no, limit it to a maximum of 2 units per lot. And the other thirds, wanted us to consider a tiered approach, potentially 3 to 4 units total, depending on the lot size. And lastly, the final third wanted to allow up to 4 units. Second question, what do you think about the maximum size of SB9 units? Roughly a third would like to go with the state required minimum of 800 square feet. And 2/3 requested consideration of a larger than 1,000 square foot SB9 unit limit. The third question, should the city limit building heights for SB9 units? A majority said no, follow existing height limits. This is close to 90%. And the remaining percent said yes, implement additional height limitations. The fourth question, would you prefer to limit SB9 units in height or lot coverage? Overwhelmingly, many, over half, said neither. And the remaining 1 to 2 would like to limit lot coverage or limit maximum height, respectively. And finally, the last question, should there be open space required for SB9 units? 2 had responded yes, and the remaining said no, not to require additional. All Right. Thank you all for participating. So I'll stop sharing and bring it back to Laura for next steps.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. And thank you all for participating. This is really valuable information as we move forward. There we go. We're almost done. Hang in there. So as I said, staff's goal for tonight's meeting is to seek your high-level community feedback to bring back to the council on their June 6th study session for those areas of SB9 where the state still allows us some flexibility. So we'll be gathering the poll data that Linda shared, and we're going to be sharing it with the council, and they will also provide this feedback to staff. And with that, staff will start. It's going to give us a good starting point as we begin to draft our local SB9 ordinance. In this process, additional community outreach will be had following our June 6th second study session with the City Council. TBD when and how that will be brought forth to the community, but we will be blasting on our e-newsletter, we'll be posting on our website, and we'll be reaching out in various other ways to get the word out to the neighborhood for the second workshop with the community. So this will happen after the second study session in June and sometime in the summer of this year. And with all the feedback from that second community workshop, staff will continue to prepare and refine our draft ordinance and code amendments. And sometime in the late winter of this year and early 2023, staff will be taking this draft ordinance and code amendments to the Planning Commission and City Council for recommendation and hopefully approval. So with that, we've reached the conclusion of this very intensive slideshow. Thank you for bearing with me. As you can see, our contacts are below, me, Linda, Manira. If you have questions, please reach out to us. Our contact is here. Please also go to our website. We keep it updated. So anything that's happening SB9 wise will be put on our website. And now it's kind of the time for us to open the floor to Q&As for the remainder of the time that we have. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. There's a raise your hand feature, I believe at the bottom menu bar, and Mary will call on you. And I don't believe we have a lot of participants here today, I think less than 25. So depending on how many questions are asked, it might be a more free-flowing popcorn type of question and answer. But yes, please ask your questions. We're here to answer them. We're excited for your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And then before Mary calls upon folks, I just wanted to add one more thing. So as Laura mentioned, this will be going to the City Council in a study session format. And, you know, this is still, the state requirements are essentially a floor that we have to build from. So we're using the minimum requirements that the state has in SB9 as the starting point, and then looking for City Council guidance as well as community input on how far beyond those do we want to go as a city. And of course, this is not our only opportunity to do so. So while we do want a code amendment to bring our requirements in compliance with SB9, starting at that floor level, you know, anything else could also be done in a phased approach. So it'll be up to the City Council, as well as after hearing from the community, what the community sentiment is, to see whether we do this now or in a phased approach. So there's going to be plenty more to come on this topic. But yes, please raise your hand at this point, and we will call on you one by one to ask your questions.
So this is Mary Way. I will go ahead and call. There's one hand raised right now, and you can, if anyone else wants to raise their hand in the meantime, that's great. I'll call on you as you raise your hand. The first person is Ian Janicki. Ian, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
Hi there. Yes, this is Ian Janicki. Thank you so much for answering. So just full disclosure here, my name is Ian Janicki. I am one of the co-founders of a company called Homestead. And we are an organization that are helping communities and homeowners across the state expedite and help homeowners achieve their SB9 vision for their property. And so, we've built out a lot of resources for SB9 potential homeowners. And I think the question we have here is, we've had a lot of people from the San Mateo area kind of ask about the processes, and we're just very curious to help those folks out. What are the, are there any kind of plans in terms of listed deliverables from preliminary parcel maps, common timelines for processing SB9 applications, whether a building permit is required or not at the time of submission, and very curious if there's like a laundry list to help homeowners kind of get clarity on what they need to bring to the permit desk.
Yes. Great question. And short answer is yes. Our website, we have attachments on our website, on our SB9 website, and it breaks the SB9 projects into lot split and non-lot split projects. And in those handouts, we have deliverables for each type of project. But I also recommend, even before you kind of get into it, is reaching out to me or Linda, saying, we have this preliminary idea. What do you think? Do you see any issues? What do you need from us, the applicant, to give to you, to the city? We're more than happy to do that. And it actually makes the process much smoother for the applicant and the homeowner going through. One, because it takes this very large process, it gives it a face. We give you the face time. We walk you through the project. And two, it's an early way for planners to spot any potential issues or ramifications. Potentially, like if you had a slope lot, I might say you might want to talk to building because there might be geotechnical issues that you might not get from just looking at a deliverable sheet. But yes, we have them, but we're also more than happy to have a conversation at the counter or over Zoom with you for a pre-application or pre-meeting, I should say, informational meeting.
Wonderful. I'll reach out right after this. Thanks so much.
And Ian, if I could add to that, so in terms of the process, to develop the second unit or the duplex, it's really a building permit because it is a ministerial process. SB9 says that we cannot employ any discretion. So again, please work with Laura and Linda if that is what you're seeking to do. If you're proposing to do a lot split, we do require a planning application submittal because that is a subdivision. However, we only apply objective standards, and it is also a process that is approved ministerially. So there is that distinction, but Laura and Linda are here to help and guide our applicants through this process.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
There are no other hands raised right now. You might want to give a minute or some other information you might have, Laura. I'm not sure.
I mean, so something that I might be interested in as someone who's trying to reach the widest net of San Mateo citizens is, do you, the people in attendance tonight, find this a good way to interact? Did it reach you easily? Is there another way that we can reach the community that you guys have ideas for, other than through an email blast or through a Zoom? Would you enjoy more of like a pop-up somewhere? Because the city is always looking for ways, new and innovative ways to reach out to our populace, because sometimes we get reach out fatigue. There's so many things happening in the city for our housing element and our general plan. So any way that we can reach you best, I would like to hear if you have any ideas, or if this is working, let us know as well.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. That means my presentation was amazing. And there are no more questions ever for SB9.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, but we'll probably have more questions. So as Laura pointed out, this has been in place since January 1st. A lot of the other cities are still testing the waters. We'll see what comes out of, interpretations that may come in the future. However, our goal is to put something on the books that is compliant with SB9, but then also look at, if there are opportunities to go beyond SB9, and that's what we'll be taking before City Council. I do see one hand raised. Mary, would you like to call upon the speaker?
Yes. Joan Bennett, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Joan, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, I had a question. I'm curious as what could be built on my lot based on, the size of my house now, the lot size. Who would I ask about that? Or who should I contact?
That would be me. So me, Linda, and Manira, but mostly me and Linda, comprise of the city's SB9 team. So we are the expert in SB9. All SB9 questions are funneled to us. So this way we're all kept in the loop and we all are distributing the same information equitably and the same message. So that would be me. If you want to email me, we can set up a meeting. We can go through possibilities. It really just depends on your imagination and how much resources you have.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see what my house already is almost 2,600 square feet. So and really my setbacks are pretty much 4 feet. So
yeah.
Anyway, I'm just curious. And then the other question I had was, how is the city going to prevent or monitor these units from turning into short-term rentals?
Excellent question. So to legally operate a short-term rental within the city, you are required to get a license from us, and you are required to also get a tax, a TOT, it's a tax certificate with the county.
Okay.
And we track through that application process the location, and we can see through our records if that property is an SB9 unit or an ADU. And if we see that, we would tell the property owner, unfortunately, this is not permitted in this area, and we would have that conversation. So there are ways to track.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, final call for questions. Let's give it 10 more seconds. Otherwise, we really appreciate you spending part of your evening with us tonight. Right, I don't see any further hands raised. Thank you, Laura, for taking us through that presentation. And thank you, Linda, for doing the poll. Have a good evening, everyone. Really appreciate you joining tonight.
Yes, thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Good night.